a lot of games that they still support, but they still do drop support for games that make them outright unplayable from that point. But, and this is where the next part of his statement comes from, we also provide a lot of services that make the game accessible and remain playable 24/7. So we provide information regarding the game and how long the game can be played, and players and buyers are forewarned that eventually the game may be discontinued. And that's kind of the problem, is that when they discontinue the game, should we not at least still be able to play those games that they stop supporting? That's kind of a really, really annoying statement. And he actually talks about something that the Stop Killing Games petition specifically says the petition will not do. So, here we go. You provide a service, but nothing is written in stone, and at some point the service may be discontinued. Nothing is eternal. We are doing our best to make sure that things go well for all players and buyers, because obviously support for all games cannot last forever. Basically what Yves is now saying is that Stop Killing Games is asking for all games to be made so that support does last forever. But the thing is that, and Ross himself, the guy who is leading the cheerleading charge rather for Stop Killing Games, said himself that this petition does not force companies to endlessly keep supporting the same game. It just makes sure that when the game stops getting supported, that there is an end-of-life plan that makes it available for anyone who bought the game to make sure that they can still play it even after support has ended. But it really, really does feel like a lot of people are completely missing that point. And the fact that Yves is going on to just saying how that it's an issue that we've been dealing with, that it's an issue that the industry has been dealing with, it's only become an issue because of live service games. If it weren't for live service games, I don't think that this idea would even be an issue. I don't think people would be having problems regarding this. I don't think that the Stop Killing Games petition would even exist if it weren't for all of this. If it weren't for the fact that Ubisoft released the game, called the crew, sold it for $60 back in the day in 2014 when the game was originally released for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and then decided to shut it down because at launch, yes, people bought the game, yes, people could play the game, but people spent $60 on their game 10 years ago. If they wanted to play it next year, well, why couldn't they? That's because access to the game was completely denied. And also what doesn't help matters is that after the game was shut down, Ubisoft did try to remove the game from people's libraries as well. That's an interesting one, but he continues on to say, the lifespan of a piece of software, whenever there's a service component, eventually services may be discontinued, because eventually the software may become obsolete over time. And that's absolutely fair. Many pieces of software have become obsolete over time. A lot of tools become obsolete 10 or 15 years down the line, they're no longer available, and that is why we release a new version. And so we have 2 versions, and then version 3, but clearly that's a far-reaching issue, and we are working on it. Now, when he talks about version 2 and version 3, obviously he's talking about the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. But the thing is that, when you play the Crew 2, you're not playing the Crew 1. When you're playing the Crew Motorfest, you're not playing the Crew 1. The Crew 2, and the Crew Motorfest are 3 completely separate products that were released. And on their release, they were $60 each. If you bought all 3 games, you would have spent $180 at launch if you bought it day one. And hell, you would have probably paid more, given that around the time that the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest came out, obviously Ubisoft were still doing like this silver edition, gold edition, platinum edition, the edition that has everything, and we're charging over $200 for edition, were being sold. But even with that being said, they are completely separate products. Whatever argument Yves is trying to make here is completely out of the question. And when he says that a lot of tools become obsolete 10 or 15 years down the line, that's too short of a time span. Because in front of me, I've got two PS3s in front of me. Behind me, I just got in the mail a copy of Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 for PS3. I've got Tekken 6 that I also just got in the mail, and the god-awful Star Trek game, because I wanted to play that out of curiosity. I got that for $9, mind you. And what else do I have? I've also got Trinity Universe for PS3. So Trinity Universe is, I think, an SRPG. It's published by Nipponichi Software, or NIS America. And is an extremely rare game to come across. So I saw how rare it was. Saw it for about $30, bought it, and now I have a copy that I can just pop into my PS3 at any time. Keeping in mind that Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 came out like around 2011, if not before that. The Star Trek game based off of the movie came out in 2012, 2013. Tekken 6, when did that come out? Holy crap, 2010, 2011? I don't know. These are all really old games. These are around 15 years ago that some of these games came out. The PS3s that I have in front of me are Slims. These came out in like 2009, 2010. They're still functional. They're still here in my house. They still work. I can still throw the disc in and play them. Just because they're not available on the market doesn't mean I can't get a cheap copy of a game that's like $10-15 on the used market. Because old games do what new games don't. At the end of the day, some games are locked to their platform of choice. Trinity Universe is a good example. Tekken 6 is another good example. It's a game from yesteryear that I'd like to sit down and play again. But the problem is that if it does get re-released, it's going to be uber expensive. So everything that Yves is saying here is completely wrong. From the endless support, which is not what Stop Killing Games is going to do, to the fact that 10 to 15 years, things are going to be obsolete? Absolutely not. I'm playing games that are older than 10 to 15 years. Hell, I wouldn't use that word. I'm playing games that are over 20 years old at this point. So think about that for a moment, that somehow things are going to become obsolete. Obviously, games are going to be timeless at the end of the day. I genuinely do believe that games are an art form that is going to remain timeless. Movies can also be timeless, but it depends on the quality and how it's made. And obviously, everything that releases is a product of its time. And then finally, the idea of having version 2 and version 3 of a thing that already exists. Remember that the Crew 2 will never replace the Crew 1. Remember that the Crew Motorfest will never replace the Crew 1. The Crew 1 had its own story. It had its own set of characters. It had its own gameplay. The Crew 2 loosened up on a lot of the story and made it less story heavy. And then you have the Crew Motorfest, which is just trying to be like Forza Horizon. So at the end of the day, each of these three games, the Crew 2, the Crew 3, or the Crew Motorfest rather, all have different identities at the end of the day. But that's just kind of what my thoughts are, what I think about all of this. Let me know what you guys think about in the comments below. I definitely got a bit heated about the conversation, just looking at what I even have around me that I can visually see with my eyes that are sitting down on tables near me currently as I sit here and record this video. But with all that being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year, and with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.